Welcome to Lift Your Story podcast with guest Karen Molan, NLP consultant, trainer, and self-development coach. Hi everyone, I am LaurieAnn. I am that gal from Mississauga, Ontario, Canada, and with
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we welcome Karen Molan, and she is an NLP consultant and training, and she is also a self-development coach. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to meet you too.
Karen, most people may not know what NLP is. Do you mind explaining that for them?
I would be very surprised if lots of people, if anybody knew who was listening, what NLP is. So NLP is Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a hell of a mouthful, right? So that's why we say NLP, because it's so much easier. So in a nutshell, this is how I break it down. Neuro is your brain, okay? And anything to do with your brain, the way you think, the way you speak, your beliefs, your values. Linguistics basically is language. You know, how do you speak? Mainly to yourself is what I'm interested in. I am interested in how you speak to other people, but I'm mainly interested in how you speak to yourself. And programming is exactly what it says on the tin. It's how do you program your brain with how you speak to yourself? And that's what I'm looking at. Because people develop these scripts about their life, you know, and it comes from, which is the horrible thing is that it's probably set by the age of 7, but you didn't know it was set. So the experiences you had as a child, what you witnessed, they all create your beliefs and values around how you are in the world and how you need to be in the world to be safe. And that's your script for life until you meet somebody like me who helped you to get a better script. So that's NLP in a nutshell.
Well, I mean, we all have those, I guess you would call them self-limiting beliefs that were formed back when we were kids.
Yeah. Every single person has them. You can't escape them. And this isn't to say it's bad parenting or anything like that, because the thing to remember, especially for parents and working women, guilt themselves so much over this one. And it's my favorite thing I love to eradicate that guilt immediately by saying children make great observers, but they are piss poor interpreters. So they see lots and lots of things, but how they interpret it is like random. It's just completely random. It can depend on how many hours sleep they had the night before, how much sugar's in their system. You know, did they have a fight with their friend in kindergarten that day? You just don't know what was going on in their heads. And then they witness mom and dad have an argument, and then they take on a belief that it's not safe to argue, or, you know, it's crazy stuff like that happens to us as kids. And as we become teenagers, we pick up extra ones, which are usually around our academic ability and our appearance. And then when you hit into your 20s, you get the mother of all of them, really and truly, because that's when you leave the edified worlds of school and college and go out into the big bad world and start to earn a living. And guess what? You don't know everything. And you will walk into work thinking, I'm holding my fabulous degree in my hand. I can run this company. And then they say, go make the coffee. and you think, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not so great after all. And so people pick up beliefs about themselves throughout the first 25 years of their lives, really, and beyond. We never stop. As we get older with a bit more maturity, hopefully those beliefs are a little bit more balanced. But in the beginning, and especially those first 7 years, it really is in the lap of the gods what children decide to believe about life. You know? So as a parent, all you can do is reinforce the healthier beliefs. But we all have them. Nobody escapes them. And when they're limiting beliefs, that's when they really can do damage to your life.
It was interesting you mentioned kids and parents arguing. You know, we were, our kids were young. We didn't ever argue in front of the kids. We were a united front in front of the kids, no matter what. But then at night, when we went to bed, then we would discuss, you know, I didn't like the way you did this, or, you know, whatever. But anyway, one of my sons one time said, he said somebody at work mentioned about, you know, they were talking about growing up, and said, you know, his parents always fought all the time. And they said, did your parents, he goes, I don't ever remember them arguing and fighting. And he goes, "Oh, you're kidding." He goes, "No." And so he called me. He said, "Dad, growing up, I don't remember you and Mom ever arguing, when we were growing up." I said, "Well, we had disagreements, but we didn't do it in front of y'all. We did it in the bedroom. We went to bed after y'all were asleep, you know." And he said, "Well, is that weird?" I go, "Well, I don't know if it is or not. That's just what we decided to do."
I don't think it's weird. I think it's lovely. I think what I would say, like, there's very few parents who would be like you, Roy, who would actually have that discipline to not snap at their partner in front of the kids every now and then. And my thing to parents always is, if you argue in front of your children, make sure you make up in front of your children. Mm-hmm. So that they learn the process of, it's okay to be mad. It's okay to have those feelings, those emotions. It's okay to express them, preferably in, a constructive way and not a screaming match, but that they see that you make up afterwards, so that they learn the process of the argument and they learn the process of the reconciliation afterwards.
Don't you find that culture, though, changes that as well? I mean, my father is Scottish, my mother is Italian French, so my mother expressed it as it is. That's how she grew up. And yet I married, we're divorced now, probably the reason, but I'm kidding. But somebody who, much like you, Roy, his parents never argued in front of him. And yet I saw my parents, but I knew the reality of marriage. So to me, I don't find that as being, like, yes, okay, there's going to be arguments, but my parents have been together 64 years.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of the other side, is that growing up, I knew it was going to be, but that united front my parents kept. Like, if Mom said no, Dad stuck to it no matter what, yeah. Even if he didn't like it. I mean, their arguments, yeah, they had them. But when it came to that, and my mother came first and my dad came first in their marriage, and then the kids after, and a lot of people don't agree with that, but they say, hey, the kids are going to grow up and leave, and this is my partner for life that I chose. But yeah, there's a lot of dissension. When I told somebody that, they go, who's first, your husband or your kids? And I said, my husband. They go, like, parents think that's horrible. You don't mean it in that sense. It's an umbrella, right? But you have to be like this in order for everything to be.
The biggest issue I have with, like, a lot of the clients who come to me would be women who are working corporate jobs and they have 2 or 3 kids and they're trying to get that work-life balance, and they're feeling like life just becomes mundane and drudgery, and it's constantly juggling and never any time for themselves, never time for self-care. And one of the things they forget to do is continue to have dates with their partner. And you have to, because the kids they're going to leave. Like, people say, your kids will go to college and they leave. Your kids will go in Ireland to secondary school, in America to high school, and they're gone at that point then, because their friends are now more important than their parents, And while you'll always be there and be their safety net, and you'll always be there to support and encourage and guide and advise, like, ultimately, you're their parent, you're not their friend. Yeah. You're not supposed to be the one, like, you're supposed to have this relationship with this other individual that you chose to be with. And you need to work on that relationship as well. And it is a bit of a juggling act until you kind of get the balance right. But I think what you were saying about your parents, LaurieAnn, was that they showed the arguments, they showed, like, the fieriness of their nature. And it is a cultural thing, definitely, because in Ireland, we're like a lot of redheaded women, we can be quick with the temper. Not saying that I would ever be like that myself, of course. I would never snap. But it's the united front they showed afterwards was showing you how that they were still a couple. An argument doesn't mean it falls apart. An argument means it's an argument. That's all. We disagreed about something and now we're over it. And it's those lessons. That's a lesson in resilience that you're teaching children. It's so important to ourselves as well as the children.
Okay, so I've got to speak to the redhead. My wife's redheaded. And she is the most laid back person in the world ever.
Really and truly. I love this.
Oh man, yeah. But anyway, talking about the parents, and we saw this when we were dating. My wife's older sister went off to college. She graduated, we got married, and her brother was still in high school, but they were all wrapped up in him, in sports and all this. Well, when John graduated from high school and went off to college, her parents were lost.
Yeah.
I mean, for like probably 6 months, they didn't know what to do because everything was involved with the kids. And when they were all gone, it's kind of like, well, what do we do now? And seeing them going through that adjustment, I told Barbara, I said, look, we have got to keep our relationship going once we have kids. And we were focused on the kids and all that, but we still kept our relationship together the whole time. And as they started going away, we still had our relationship. So seeing what her parents went through prepared us to make sure we did do that, to keep our relationship.
I love that. I love that, Roy. That is perfection, really, in a relationship. That is exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, because Barbara's always my first choice for everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
has to be.
So Karen, who do you work with most in regards to your training and your NLP? Do you have specifically, you were talking about women and their careers?
I'd say probably about 80% of my client portfolio would be females, would be women who are working and doing that juggling, or women who put their careers first and are now trying to figure out how do I now have a relationship with somebody, and what do I do now, because for a lot of women, especially in their like 30s, mid 30s, say 30 to mid 30, they're kind of looking at, well, if I get married or if I invest in a relationship, I could get sidelined here at work, because that still happens. And as wrong as that is, and we have equality in lots of areas, that still happens, because an employer is looking at somebody who potentially could be gone on maternity leave for a long time. So are you going to give a promotion to somebody that may not be there for the next part of 2-3 years? So that in corporate world does happen quite a lot. So I know a lot of women that are clients of mine would have put having children or having relationships on hold to get to where they wanted to get in their career. And now they're looking around them going, right, where are the men, or where are the women, or where's that significant other that I want in my life? And they're having to figure out, well, I don't actually know how to do this anymore. It's been so long, dated in my 20s, and I kind of stopped, and now I'm back into it. But the majority of my clients will be working mothers who are striving to get that sense of themselves because they've lost their identity a little bit. And they're trying to claim that back and not be Joey's mom, or, Paul's wife, or Mary's wife, or whatever it is. They're really trying to find their sense of self again. And I help them how to get in touch with that. And because I incorporate Adlerian psychology, which is the individual psychology, the psychology of Dr. Alfred Adler. So he wouldn't be very well known in many circles, but absolutely I love his work because it's a psychology of use. It's so practical. So his big thing was, the man isn't alive anymore, obviously, but his big thing was, well, this is the reason why your life is the way you are. And we work through what happened to you up to the age of 7. So these are the beliefs you have about life. These are the values you hold about life. This is the image you have of yourself in the world. And the question that you ask then is, now what do you want to do about that? So it's not a sit and navel gaze psychology. It's a proactive, take steps, change your life. What's your plan? Type of psychology, which fits in very well with the neuro-linguistic programming. So I absolutely adore that. And because I combine the two of them, it allows me to take my clients just that little bit deeper than most coaches go. I can delve a little bit further into, well, yeah, what did you witness as a kid that made you think the world wasn't a safe place to raise, a guinea pig in, or whatever it is their issue. I did have a client who didn't think that it was safe for guinea pigs to be in the house, but anyway, that was a whole other thing. So, you look at what went on for the person, and I approach people holistically. I like to see from start to finish what their life is and what gives them joy, and get them to get back in touch with that thing that gives them joy in life. Like I had one woman who joined a book club, and I absolutely love books. I mean, I have shelves that are, collapsing. It's the only word to use to describe them, under the weight of the books that's on them. But and at the camera that I have here on my desk where I work is facing away from the bookshelf. And I said to her, I just said, for instance, and I just reversed the camera. I said, I love books. And she actually started to cry. She goes, it's been so long since I've had books. Like she had literally swapped out her books for her children. So the shelves got filled with kids' books and she lost what she loved. So she joined a book club to get back joy in her life. And that, just doing that one action, completely changed her outlook on, oh, actually my life is great. And it's then she was able to see and express gratitude for all the other great things she had in her life, if that makes sense.
It does. I love that. I do have a question. It can literally, like, I'm sitting back while you're talking thinking, 7 years old until I was 7, like I had a pretty good childhood. So what was the one thing? But it could just be the one thing, though. I remember my mother, telling me not to annoy the guests because I was kind of a little ham when I was 3 years old. I still remember that, and I was doing somersaults and trying to entertain them, and she kind of, and I don't think she meant it that way. But then the rest of my life, I saw myself as being someone who's very annoying and shut up, Roy. But anyway.
Yeah, that's it. But this is, again, it's what you observed, what you heard, and then it's the meaning you give to it.
Yeah.
And that's what we do with everything in life. It doesn't matter what happens to us, it's the meaning we put on what happens to us. And we work from that as if it's gospel. Like that is the only truth that we know. Mm-hmm. And we work from that until you meet somebody like me who kind of goes, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, isn't it hard for most people to go back and, go back to that point and try to work forward from it?
Oh, heck no. We do this thing where I'll ask you to give me your earliest memory, your earliest recollection, right? And I ask you to tell me the story of it as if you were in it again, like. And based on that telling of that early recollection, I can pull out your strengths, I can pull out fears, I can pull out weaknesses, I can pull out areas where you would feel intimidated. And you produce at the end of an early recollection what's called a syllogy, which is the I am, men are, women are, the world is, therefore I must. So I'm small, women are weak, men are strong, therefore I must marry somebody strong. And you would be amazed at how many women have that one. You'll be amazed. And it's like, you have to marry somebody strong. What does strong then mean to you? Mm-hmm. Like your partner in life must be somebody who is strong because you're weak. First of all, how do you know you're weak? What is weak? And secondly, what is strong? And so once you start asking those kind of logical questions, the linguistic side of it, to a client, they start going, actually, do you know what? I also remember when such and such, and suddenly all of the memories will start flowing. They just need that one little trigger to get it going. And it's very easy for people to say, yeah, I don't remember my childhood. I can't remember anything specific. And in Neuro-Linguistic Programming, we do an exercise with the timeline where I have somebody just imagine walking back along your timeline and just stop when you find something that was funny, because you're not always looking for the trauma. Sometimes you're looking for the lightness and where did your joy come from in life? What was funny? Where did your connection with people come from? What was the thing that made you sit up and go, oh my gosh, I absolutely love guinea pigs. I love books. I love whatever it is, And when you have somebody walk back along an imaginary timeline and they'll stop because their unconscious mind will guide them to the place that they know is there. But consciously, we're not aware of it. Because remember, consciously, we only hold between 5 and 9 pieces of information at a time. That's all. Everything else is held in our unconscious. So you have 70,000 thoughts a day, right? Only 2,500 of those thoughts are positive. The rest are negative. And that's all held in your unconscious then. So if you don't have the skills of accessing and reframing stuff in a positive way, then a lot of what you think happened to you in life could be quite negative. But in reality, when you ask somebody to go back and tell me about the time that you laughed so hard you almost peed your pants, you start having them access those happy memories and access the joy again in their life. And it's all about getting in touch with that joy. So you can be in a place of gratitude. And when you're in a place of gratitude, there is just such abundance in your life. You find beauty in everything. It's wonderful.
So interesting. My Roy, do you have one? Because I remember mine when I was, I think, 6 years old, Expo 1967. So that would have been, I was 5 years old, and getting a gray elephant on a stick that I was holding. And I'll always remember that moment. I have no idea why, but I love that elephant.
Well, you mentioned, people not remembering their childhood.
Mhm.
And my youngest son was that way. Because I can say, "Oh, Stephen, you remember?" No, I don't remember any of that stuff, Dad. And you talk to other people, and I was surprised at the number of people that don't remember their childhoods.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just blown away by that.
The biggest thing that stops you remembering, like people, the problem is as well, okay, first off, when people start to remember their childhood, then they'll go for the negative because our brains are wired towards negativity. It just is default programming with us. There's nothing you can do about it. So you have to train yourself into like positiveness rather than default negativity. So when they do start to remember, they might remember like being humiliated on the schoolyard or their parents giving out to them or falling off a bike. And they're just like, oh, why would I want to remember that? So they shut it down anyway. And your unconscious mind is always trying to protect you. So if you remember something that's like painful or humiliating, your unconscious mind is going to go, no, we're not doing that. No, stop now. And it'll say, oh, hey, look over there, bright shiny object. Go look at that instead. And it'll distract you away. But if you ask somebody to go back and say, tell me about the time that you were at a beach and it was amazing. Or tell me at the time where you peed your pants, because you were laughing so hard. Or tell me the first time you got drunk with your friends. And they go, oh my God, we were 16, we snuck out of the house. It was like, and suddenly they'll start accessing the good memories. But the biggest blocker of those memories is stress. And when you allow stress into your life on a daily basis and leave it go unchecked, it takes over everything in your thought process. And your mind can only focus on the thing that's stressing you. So say you have a financial worry in your life. How am I going to make the next mortgage payment? When is the rent due? Car payments, whatever it is. And that's what you're worrying about. And that's a stress for you. It's very hard when you're thinking, we may not make the mortgage next month. But hey, I remember that day I was at the beach when I was 5 and it was amazing. That doesn't pay the mortgage. You know what I mean? So your unconscious mind is driving you towards a solution that will pay the mortgage, but there is no solution because you can't earn any extra money. So instead, it just gets you to worry about it because in your mind, when you're worrying, you're actually doing something. It's not a productive thing to do, but you're actually doing something. So you get a sort of a hit, like a reward. Well, I'm doing something about it. Not really, but you feel like you are. So therefore, you feel a bit better about sitting down and worrying about the fact that you can't pay the mortgage this month.
Well, see, that's, you're saying that my son may not do that because of bad memories. Well, see, all my memories of childhood are bad, and I remember every single one of them.
There's a difference in age between you and your son, I take it.
No, but even when I was growing, my sisters, they said they don't remember a lot of stuff that happened when we were kids, but I remember everything.
And again, this is the wonderful thing I like about the work of Dr. Alfred Adler, because he says things can always be different. There's no two human beings on this planet that are alike, and you must take a holistic approach to everybody. So some people will remember, some won't. I have a stockpile of memories from my childhood that I can, good and bad, that I can pull on. It's about the individual and what suits the individual to remember or not remember. There could be purpose in you remembering the memories, Roy, because there's a safety in remembering them. There's a lesson in those memories that keeps you safe today, or keeps you productive today, or keeps you motivated today, because our memories are great motivators. And so you're using them, you could be using them that way, whereas your son doesn't need that. He has different things going on that he uses.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, makes sense.
I like this though, because quite often when I was talking about, because my ex-husband didn't remember any of his youth, and I was being told all the time, well, there must have been something traumatic because they shut it off. And then of course, then I meet Roy, and he says his son never, there was no trauma there. But there might have been things that, Roy, you don't know, was it bullying or something that was outside of your home. But then I have my own children too that don't remember. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I'm glad that you're saying that, because it's not always because of trauma that people will
No.
shut things out. And so that's a fallacy that I learned later on in
Absolutely.
life. Yeah.
And there was a period there back in the 80s where a lot of some seriously questionable therapy happened with young children with these reclaimed memories. And you have to, I would always question about, well, was it a reclaimed memory, or did it actually happen? You know, because when a child turns up to a therapist and says, oh, I don't remember my childhood, and they're a child, then that tends to be a red flag for a lot of therapists, when in actual fact, it doesn't need to be at all. It could be just that their life is so much interesting right now that they're just not looking back, you know, like I'm having great fun.
Remove those files, put some new ones in,
Exactly.
like a computer, right? Wipe that out, more ones come in.
Yeah, and you have like people really do get like hung up on, oh, something dark and sinister must have happened to you in your childhood. And I go, no, I'm just warped. That's just who I am, you know. There's nothing dark and sinister happened to make me like I am. This is just me. Accept me as who I am. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that you went through something traumatic, but it could be something as simple as your favorite teacher was having a bad day, and they were snappy with you when they were never snappy with you before. And then that you just developed a thing of, right, you just can't trust people. You know, it's as simple as that.
Trigger.
Yeah, it becomes a trigger. And like, until you learn what your triggers are, until you get that self-development going, like you're going to constantly run into them as you go along in life. Some people handle them really well, some people don't. It all depends.
Well, how can our listeners reach out to you?
Your listeners can find me in multiple ways. I'm everywhere, omnipresent at this stage. There's my website, skillsquestcompany.com. They can find me on Facebook, Karen Molan. It's one of these, Molan. It's one of the easiest ways to get me. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. They can find me wherever they need me.
Okay.
Google Karen Molan. There aren't that many of us in the world. Turns out.
Oh, it was lovely having you on, and lovely meeting you, Karen. Thank you so much for all this.
Yes.
Thank you. It's so lovely to meet you and put faces to names, you know. It's really nice. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.